Our next guest is the Super Bowl winning former head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers and a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. His memoir, Heart and Steel, is available now. Please welcome to the show, Bill Cowher. Coach Cowher, I'm just going to be honest. I'm really excited you're here.
Hey, Seth, I didn't get the dress code. Was I supposed to wear a tank top? I don't know. I wasn't sure.
No, this is for the best. I think we've managed to hammer that home.
Okay.
So this is a really cool thing that you were inducted into the Hall of Fame, but because of the pandemic, you're actually going to get to go to the ceremony this August. Have you gotten to at least put on the gold jacket yet?
I have put on the gold jacket. I got it earlier. It fit perfectly. My number on the inside is 331. So forever, I'll be number 331 in the Ken Pro Football Hall of Fame as I sit in there with my bust. And it's a team I can't get cut from, Seth. I'm on it for the rest of my life.
You know, this is, I knew a fair amount about your career, but I really enjoyed reading the book. One of the most fascinating things to me, you were playing football. You know, you'd been obviously plagued by injuries to some degree, but you were still an active football player when you decided to take less money and get into coaching. Obviously, that worked out for you, but that must have been an incredible leap of faith to make as a young guy.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, if you look through the book, Seth, I was probably more public than I've ever been in doing so. And as I sat down with this book, I talked about not just a football book. It's about football, family, and one's life journey of lessons learned. And along the way, I had to make a lot of those decisions we all have to make when you reach that fork in the road. Yogi Berra says, just take it. I think you got to put some thought into it. So I was given an opportunity by Marty Schottenheimer to go with him, to get into coaching, and I never looked back.
As you mentioned, this isn't just a football book. It's a really beautiful book about family. You talk about, the wonderful family you had, as well as some really difficult loss. Your father, your wife, both passed away in a really small period of time. Was it hard to go back and write those stories down?
It really was. I mean, I sat there and had to find a perfect collaborator and I got Michael Hawley, and he was that. He was able to pull more stories out of me than a licensed therapist, to be quite honest with you. And we sat there and talked about how we're going to write this book, and he said, let's just do it chronologically. So as I sat down and went through the periods of time of my life, as you talk about growing up in Pittsburgh, going back to Pittsburgh, playing in the National Football League, then coaching in the National Football League, the reason I stepped down, got into TV, and then, as you stated, in 2010, a period of time where I lost my father and my wife within 3 months period of time, I found myself laughing, crying, smiling, and just thinking and reflecting on a lot of things that took place in my life, and the mentors that are a big part of it, that being Marty Schottenheimer, Dan Rooney, and my father, and really the women in my life as well have been a big part of it because I have 3 daughters, my beautiful wife that passed away, Kay, and my current wife today, V.
You talk about the fact, you grew up in Pittsburgh. Everyone around you was a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. You're 34 years old when you get the head coaching job, which is so, when you think about it now, so incredibly young to take on that responsibility. You have a great story in the book about a season ending and going out to dinner and your dad kind of forgetting that you were the actual coach of the Steelers at the time.
It was at the end of the 92 season, and you remember the 92 season. Neil O'Donnell got hurt. I put Bobby Brister in for like the last 5 games. And Bobby played better as we went on, but Neil got ready. We had a bye week. And I thought a player never loses his job to injury, so Neil came in and played the playoff game against the Buffalo Bills. It was not one of his better games. The next weekend, we go over to my dad's house in Crafton, the same place we've always had Sunday afternoon dinners. My brothers are there, my kids are there. Everybody takes their place at a seat. And it's kind of hectic. Things are going on. My dad gets up out of his seat, goes over, gets a beer out of the kitchen. He goes, how about them Steelers? How done with them to sit there and start Neil O'Donnell? He hadn't played in a month, and Bobby Brister was getting better and better. I go, Dad. He goes, what? He goes, them Steelers. I go, that was me, your son, that made that decision. He kind of stopped. And he goes, I'm sure you had a good reason for it. Didn't even ask me. He's just like, okay, I guess I was wrong again. Then he went on to another subject. Well, wow, you'll never take the fan out of Pittsburghers.
Well, my father, that's why I love the Steelers as much as I do. And I was talking to him about this book, and I said, I don't know if this is healthy or not, but there are games that when Bill writes about him in the book, I think that if I wrote my autobiography, I would actually have more pages about the game. That's how traumatic it was for me. Is it, when you look back at your career, do you remember the wins more or the losses more?
Seth, I remember every AFC championship loss. And I know you were actually at the 94 championship loss that we had against the San Diego Chargers.
Yeah.
And do you remember the temperature that day?
I remember it was very cold.
No, it was very warm. It was like 60 degrees.
Oh, I think I meant that my heart got very cold at the end.
it was 60 degrees in the middle of January, and we're playing the San Diego Chargers. That was I just thought that's a bad omen to start with. And we got down to it, and the bottom line is we had a chance to throw the ball into the end zone to win the championship and go down and try to win one for the thumb. It fell incomplete. The San Diego Chargers go to the Super Bowl, and that happens to be the same year that I had my 20th high school class reunion. And I go back to my 20th high school class reunion, head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm sitting there thinking, okay, we came off a pretty good season in the championship game, 3 straight years of the playoffs. What are we going to do? We're going to have the reunion. I think I'll just do just a run by, stop in, stop out. We're going to do it on a cruise. I go, what? A cruise. So we get on this boat. Well, it's just going to be a boat. The boat takes off. Now I'm on a river cruise for 3 hours with all the guys I went to high school with, all telling me the things I did wrong in the San Diego Charger game, asking for tickets for the next year. And I'm thinking, I can't get off this boat. So I had to be very nice to everybody and cordial with everybody along the way. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely right. I should have thought about that. Yeah, you told me that back in high school. Yeah.
I certainly, I was with my family when you won the Super Bowl in 2005. It's one of my favorite moments. With my family, obviously, you got to celebrate it with your family, too. Does it make it easier looking back at your tenure in Pittsburgh because you did get to bring the Lombardi back?
Yeah, it did. It meant so much to me, Seth, to be able to hand that trophy to Dan Rooney, after 14 years, because he had entrusted so much faith in me and stayed with me through a lot of difficult times and a lot of disappointing losses. I talk about the 94 game and 97 against the Denver Broncos, the 2001 against the New England Patriots, and then 2004, just the year before, against the Patriots again. And you finally try to get there and get over the hump, and then get over the hump and go back, and then be able to hand that to Mr. Rooney was one of the most gratifying, I would say, most gratifying moment in my career.
I feel as though once a coach leaves Pittsburgh, especially someone who's local like you are now only looked back on with love. You were a beloved figure in Pittsburgh, but in the time that you were there, even though you were a local kid, even though your teams had a lot of success, is it true that you had a different way of getting gas during the season and out of season?
Yes, it is. As long as you stay in Pittsburgh, you find out that people get closer to you. You start to build a little bit of a friendship. And then people feel like they can feel very comfortable giving you advice and start telling you the things that can help you get over the hump. I know exactly what you need to do. So it got to the point where, you know what, if I had to stop in and get gas, I waited. If we won, I got gas that week during the day. Not a problem. Hey, coach, great game. If we lost, I learned to get gas at night and go to self-serve. I get there and pull my hat down. I didn't need to hear about all the things that we should have been doing and the things that we didn't do. So, yes, I was kind of just acclimating my lifestyle to whether we win or lose.
Last thing, car par. For people who aren't from Pittsburgh, they'll probably think it's just nonsense words. Do you want to tell everybody what car par is?
Well, car is like another way for a Pittsburgher, kind of a Yinzer, like Yins, car, hey, car. And like car par, yeah, it's car par. It's like, we don't pronounce our words. That's one of the things I had to get over going into TV, Seth, was learning how to enunciate words again.
Well, you've done a very fine job with it, and you've written a very fine book. Really, really appreciate the time. Thanks so much for being here, Coach.
Thanks for having me, Seth.
Heart and Steel is available everywhere now, but please remember to support local and independent bookstores.